Everything we do is going to be about winning. Okay, we're going to learn to do things the right way, and that's the only way we're going to do them. Because if it doesn't help us, we're not doing it, man. That's just as simple as it gets. Win the Super Bowl.
That's
I
good.
mean it too. You know, one of the things that the only reason you become a head coach in this league, in my opinion, is to win. That's it. That's the bottom line. If you do it for any other reason, you're wrong.
Hey football fans, welcome to the Washington Command Center. So today I'm going to finally go over our draft class and what I think about the players that Ron Rivera selected to begin this new era of Washington football, an era where this proud franchise can once again command respect. And what better way to kick off this new era than subscribing here to the Washington Command Center, so you can find your way back to some of the most opinionated and ice-cold calculated takes on all things Washington Commanders. While you're at it, ring that bell, hit the like button. It's free to do and it means a lot. Thanks. So, straight up, they didn't address any of the needs I thought needed to be addressed. Unlike most fans, I wanted to trade back and dump more early resources into getting this defense to peak level. But who the hell am I? Also, unlike most fans, I'm going to put my ego aside and trust the professionals here. I mean, let's not act like these weren't all, players we needed anyway. So at this point, it's just a matter of what the fan base thought were the needs, which was about a million different opinions anyway, compared to the actual architects of the team. Guys that's livelihoods actually depend on this all working out. So let's take a look at these picks and see how I feel about them. So, as for the first round, I have been team trade back from the point in my film study where I realized Kyle Hamilton wasn't the strongest in slot coverage, along with his testing showing that he's probably not going to be a rangy free safety either. So here I got my wish. We get to trade back, pick up a third and a fourth, which is solid. And honestly, I would have been willing to move back farther for more compensation. And they said they have multiple suitors, but they stayed put there, took their guy, Jahan Dotson. Now, if you follow the media and the analyst-driven big boards, this looks like a considerable reach. But a few people had commented before the draft that Jahan Dotson was higher up on boards for actual NFL teams than he was in the media. Our own John Keim had said as much. Chris Collinsworth had said as much. And while I wasn't interested in a first-round wide receiver, I considered Drake London to, you know, be the best first-round guy for our team, but he wasn't there. And I always thought Dotson was going to be a guy that went late in the first. So I didn't think it was that much of a reach. I constantly saw him mocked to like the Saints at 19, Green Bay at 22 or 28, the Cards at 23, the Bills at 25, the Titans at 26, Kansas City at 29 or 30. I even saw him mocked to the Steelers at 20 by the Dynasty Nerds. So that's why I never mentioned him as a possible second round guy, that we could possibly get, because I knew that somebody was going to pull the trigger on Dotson somewhere between the Saints and the Chiefs range. And even if we did end up with a slot only guy, like some analysts said, I think, he would be the elite of elite at that. But I just don't see him that way. I know a lot of Washington fans really, really like Chris Olave and thought, he was possibly worth pick 11, or a short trade back, which, they saw that wasn't possible with the draft. You weren't going to trade back and get Chris Olave. But I have always had Jahan Dotson over Chris Olave as a prospect. And that's not just because I wasn't very high on Olave, which I wasn't. Not a big fan of Olave. But I feel like Dotson did all the things that Olave was lauded for. You know, he just did them, as good or better. He smooth routes, deep speed, separation, finding the holes in zones. Dotson was better at continuing to work to bail his quarterback out. He also made himself a better target for his quarterback. He provided a huge catch radius, just like Ron has constantly commented on. And I'm sure you guys have already been hit over the head with this best hands in the draft thing. But it's true. And that's another area where he outshines Olave. Not only does Dotson make the crazy one-handed backflip OBJ movie type catches, more importantly, he makes all the easy ones. He attacks the ball in the air and he gets to work upfield, unlike Olave. He could break some ankles and some tackles. Olave looks like he's playing two-hand touch. And for people acting like an inch in height and 9 pounds dooms Dotson to the slot, when he's clearly the more physical player out of the two. When you consider both of their situations, too, I think it really shows how much better Dotson is. I mean, they had very similar production against similar top competition, but Dotson managing to have, more receptions and more yards, while Olave ended up with one more touchdown. But Olave was working with a possible number 1 or number 2 overall pick at quarterback and 2 first round wide receivers, drawing attention and coverage away from him. Dotson had a day 3 backup at best, throwing the ball to him, and not a soul around him any defense was concerned about in the least. And he carried that entire offense. Basically, I think anyone that would have been okay taking Olave there, or even at 11, should have been thrilled with the Dotson pick too. I think he's a great complement to this offense. I would have preferred some size, but his catch radius, his amazing hands, that gives you like a similar advantage to a much larger wide receiver. Along with shiftiness, we didn't quite have either. Like, he's pretty shifty. And I know these are some lofty comps, but I think Dotson is very much like Antonio Brown or a much improved Deontay Johnson. More like Brown if I'm being honest. The size, the catching, the route running, the shiftiness. But Dotson has even more speed than him. You think I'm crazy, but go watch some of the highlights from Antonio Brown's rookie season, back to back with Dotson's, and man, they look a lot alike. I wasn't interested in adding wide receiver early, but the one we picked has all those traits to make, Brown and Johnson special, plus a little bit more. And the attitude and personality more in line with Terry McLaurin. Like, this guy is a great mix of things. So I think the pick was an A plus when you take everything else away and just judge the player we got. I really think it was an A. A plus. The second pick was Phidarian Mathis, Big Phil. Now, most people hated this pick, but this was just a case of me seeing the importance of a need differently than the team. And honestly, I think they're right here. Run defense from the D line is massive in the defense that Ron is looking to run. We got a nickel and one of the linebackers playing the pass first. So there isn't a lot of help against the run for the D line. There's also a lot of talk about us making this problem for ourselves by letting Settle walk, which I hate it because he's a homer, or cutting Ionitis. But this was just flat out smarter roster building. People are complaining about us replacing 2 5th rounders with a 2nd rounder. But they were 5th rounders already making more money. The kind of money you don't need to be paying rotational defensive tackles. And you get the best value here in the 2nd round on a guy you know has everything you need to replace the 79% of snaps that he has to for Matt and Tim. Now, I had Mathis as the 3rd best defensive tackle in this class. A distant 3rd, still a 3rd. And he was the one with the most reliable motor to actually play a lot of snaps. Because the top 2 defensive tackles came with those concerns. People don't know if they're going to be able to play a lot of snaps. And there really weren't many defensive tackles in this class that fit what we were looking for. It wasn't like we could wait around to the 5th round for a guy because nobody else could really do what Mathis did. Now, he's a guy that's going to erase the run. No one is going to run up the middle on us. No interior offensive lineman is going to gain any ground on him. And he's a guy that's going to keep constant pressure because he's got an incredible motor. And he's going to clean up some sacks because of that too. I also think he unleashes his athleticism at times and shows some legit pass rush potential. Like sometimes he gets, past the offensive lineman and is on the quarterback or the ball carrier very quickly. And even if he doesn't end up shining there, he's going to be a very important part of this defense. For those of you that play video games, think of him as a support player. He's going to boost the team around him. He's going to boost everybody's production. He's going to soak up those extra blockers and keep our linebackers free to run around and make plays and help them rack up numbers. Just looking at the 3 most common comps for Phil, you get Jonathan Hankins, that Washington fans were thirsty for in free agency before we drafted Payne. You also get Dalvin Tomlinson and Muhammad Wilkinson. These are all guys that went in the same range as Phil. Wilkerson going into the end of the 1st, he was taking a 30. Tomlinson going pick 55, and Hankins going 2 picks later than Phil at 49. All these guys are in the same mold and have played at a consistently high level throughout their careers. Hankins being, in that 78, 80 range in grading through his rookie contract. Wilkerson and Tomlinson have both graded even higher. If he ends up like any of them, he's a steal. And I think he's a great fit, a smart team building move that shows that Ron believes we're approaching a level where we can compete at a high level. And he wanted to be able to continue to get similar or better production from the D line without spending more money. You pay your top guys, not your rotational guys. And we're at a place where we can't take a shot on a developmental guy in the fifth that might not work out. We needed almost guaranteed production there. And I think we got it in Mathis. Again, I'm not going to ding the team for my amateur opinion of what I thought was the bigger need. Was this a need? Yes. Does this player fill that need better than anybody on the board? Yes. Was it a smart team building move? Well, it saves us $8 million cap while possibly being an overall upgrade, so yes. Might sound crazy, but as it stands, if he's just a rotational player that replaces Matt and Tim, I got to give it an A. If he was brought in to straight up replace Payne, thereby saving us tens of millions while keeping the strength of our defense in the D line moving forward, without missing a beat, he's an A++. So let's just hope he's a flat out A for now and hope we can hang on to Payne too. On to the next one, round 3 with a running back. Damn, so I'm not one to value running backs highly. I was terrified at the thought of even the consensus top guys in the draft in Hall and Walker, with us possibly taking them in a second. Like, people were talking about that, and I was like, oh God, please no. Don't spend a second round pick on a running back. But Robinson was my favorite of the running backs that I considered the early round guys. And before our trade back, he was a guy that I didn't think we'd have a shot at getting. I thought he'd be gone before the 4th. And I think he's a guy that complements Antonio Gibson perfectly. I had him way ahead of Tyrion Davis Price that, we had met with, and he ended up going to the 49ers like 8 picks before Robinson, which honestly might have triggered us into taking Robinson where we did, with there not being that many power backs in this draft. With AG, though, and this pick, they showed us that this is where they look in the draft for a quality running back. And Robinson is a far more proven ball carrier. I mean, Gibson was a wide receiver, and he complements what we already have in AG perfectly. Also, contrary to what people might have heard, he can pass protect. Just ask Channing Tindall. But we've seen that Ron wants to be able to lean on the run game and grind out those tough games. And this is a great player to do it with. I think with the dependability that Robinson brings, I think it'll change the dynamic of the offense. I think with him, coming in, he gives us more of a workhorse every down guy. I think he does that more than people are kind of viewing him as a short yardage or goal line guy. But I think he's more than that. I think he's going to give us that stability that we need. And we're going to see AG transition over to more of that offensive weapon role where he can make the biggest impact. People have said that Robinson will eat up a lot of AG's carries, and they're kind of worried about that. But I also think AG will make up for that by eating into JD's passes. Just look at the biggest play in his career so far was that catch against Buffalo last year that's where Gibby can be special. I think with Robinson here now, we can focus Gibby more on, pass catching now. Mixing him in with Samuel and JD could make this incredibly easy for Wentz. And, I would have preferred to wait around to address running back. But honestly, this is a free pick that we didn't have to begin with. And this was my favorite of the running backs I consider to be the premier running backs in this class. That he solidifies our backfield, gives us something we were missing. I also think they could use Robinson's physicality to manufacture a legit Derrick Henry effect. Like Robinson banging between the tackles, hitting those linebackers, those DBs, softening them up, first half of the game before unleashing a fresh Gibby late. And he's no slouch in the power department with his tackle breaking. A fresh Gibby against a battered defense could be insanely productive. So I firmly believe we could get that Derrick Henry effect, how he kind of just beats down defenses for like the first half before he's got that extra gear he clicks into in the second half. We'll just use two players to get that. It could be amazing. So I'm going to give this a B. Like, it's not that bad. About as high a grade as I can give to a running back before the fourth round. After that, round 4, we got kind of a surprise with Raging Cajun, free safety, strong safety, slot corner, Percy Butler, 6 foot, 194, who was a super versatile piece with 155 snaps in the slot, 169 in the box, but the majority played deep with 282 snaps at free safety. He had a 78.6 overall PFF grade. And while the draft coverage leaned into him and his special team value, I think this guy is a sleeper bootleg Daxton Hill, who, he's 6 foot 191, and he only had a 76 PFF grade. Butler has actually spent more time deep, though, where Hill's just kind of projected there. Honestly, they could see their roles reverse in the NFL, though. Hill played mostly in the slot, but he's heading to free safety, while Butler played pretty evenly with the slight edge to free safety, but I think he's bound to that nickel spot, especially with the way Ron's talking. And getting a bargain version in what I was hoping for in wanting Hill or Petrie for our defense, Butler has all that versatility that you mix that in along with Cam, McCain, and even Fuller, and we get a really fluid secondary that can make it incredibly hard for quarterbacks to get a good pre-snap read, to know what's going on. So this is a real sleeper pick to be possibly the most impactful guy in the draft. Even with, everybody so far projected to have a ton of snaps right out the gate, Butler could be a piece that really helps this defense come together. I feel like they can get similar results out of Butler that they could have from a Daxton Hill or a Petrie. And if they can, then that would be a massive steal in the 4th round. He's got to polish up his tackling a bit. Sometimes he goes for the big hit instead of wrapping up. But I think, we'll get him out of that. And I just love the versatility, explosiveness, and range he brings to the team. We got the second fastest safety in the draft in the fourth round, and with his pure traits, versatility, I think he's a small school Daxton Hill with plus special teams value too. But I really think he's going to be a guy that ends up with a starting role, especially with how Ron's talking now, and it could be at nickel or free safety. Like, if he's the guy to replace Bobby McCain, I wouldn't be mad at that either. So that's for sure an A for me on this pick. Then we had another trade that was basically just a double pick swap. Honestly, I wish we could have got something out of it, for how far we moved back instead of just swapping picks. I know we came up, way far from the sixth to have the two early fifth rounders, but I don't know. It just seems like for how far we went back, we should have got more. But all's well that ends well, because with our next pick, we got my QB1, Sam Howell, with the first pick in the fifth round. Pure insanity. This draft was pure bizarro world to me. I feel like the way so much talent fell, it just blew my mind, especially this quarterback class. And in my opinion, we got the best of the bunch. Sam Howell, who I've gone into length about before we landed Carson Wentz, was the only quarterback in this draft ever projected to be a possible number one overall pick. Last year, coming out of his sophomore season, this guy looked at like a lock for a top five pick. Then, after losing all the talent around him, his protection, and having his offense completely changed, he still came out, tried to carry the team on his back as a true junior. And he showed the grit and the leadership that he has, along with the rushing ability of a fullback, breaking 63 tackles, rushing for 1,072 yards, and with a forced missed tackle rate to tie his teammate from the season before, Javonte Williams, with a .48 forced missed tackle rate. Like, the best forced missed tackle rate of a running back last season, Sam Howell tied that this season. The best part is Sam is the youngest quarterback of all the top quarterbacks in this draft, the only true junior at 21 years old, so he has time to learn and develop behind Carson with his former teammate, De'Ami Brown, that he had an absolutely epic 20.2 yard per connection with. Every time he threw a pass to De'Ami and De'Ami called it, on average, it was for 20 yards. That's insane. That's bigger than Burrow and Chase. I think they had somewhere in the 17-yard ballpark, which is still crazy. But, man, they also connected for 18 touchdowns in their 2 years together in Chapel Hill. If we didn't have Carson, this would have been the guy for me at 11. And it's complete freaking Twilight Zone that we got him at the top of the fifth round. And as a pick all by itself, it could elevate this entire draft to a plus 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 to me. So I don't even know how to judge this draft as a whole because of it. I mean, this pick though is like an A plus plus plus. Best pick value of any team in the entire draft. Nobody got better value than that. Somebody who could arguably been QB1 in the fifth round. I believe in Carson Wentz. I think he can actually win a Super Bowl with us with the kind of team we're building around him. Hell, if we do, I'm down to roll with Carson for the 3 years left on his deal before finally unleashing Sam Howell on the NFL when he's Kenny Pickett's age with a refined offense around him. Like, this is a very, very, very exciting pick. Like, I mean, if you watch my videos before we got Carson, you know how huge of a Sam Howell fan I was. And we ended up getting him in the 5th round. How crazy is that? A+++. After that, we took Cole Turner, who was the best pass catching threat at tight end on the board, and the only one that might be able to plug in and help us in the passing game this season. A guy with a massive catch radius that can make spectacular catches with some solid yak ability. Uh, he's a decent enough route runner as a former wide receiver. He's not sure-handed, but he can make the really tough ones. At this point in the draft, if tight end was a target, they had to go here and get him now. You know, we know like he was a guy that we were very interested in anyway, and that double pick swap put us in range to land him. So this is an A for me too. Like, I just can't make an argument against it. Is there a better tight end here? I didn't think so. Is there another player left to fill a more important need? Like, you could make the argument for cornerback depth with Castro Fields, McCollum, and Woolen still being on the board, or a center prospect like Luke Wattenberg, but none of them are going to make the kind of impact this year Turner can. And with Logan's injury, we can plug Cole in and just let him play like the jumbo receiver role. So I got to give this one an A too, honestly. Into the 7th round with our second to last pick, and we got our second biggest steal of the draft, I think, here with Chris Paul with the 230th pick of the draft. Like, I always had this guy as a late 4th, early 5th at worst, and he's got tons of potential. He's agile with good feet, great athleticism. He's going to make a hell of a guard. He's got a thick lower body. I thought he looked far more technical, and he's not as explosive as Tyler Smith, but I really thought he looked like the better of the Tulsa tackles most of the time. It's just Tyler Smith had just, the crazy explosion and some, otherworldly balance sometimes, but they were not they were not 6 rounds apart as far as their potential goes. Now, he still has a ton of refinement to make, but already pretty solid. I think moving the guard, he's going to be great with his really thick lower body. I think John Matsko can mold this guy into a legit high-level starting guard for the future. A 7th rounder and him along with Sadiq Charles could end up as solid replacements for Norwell and Turner in a year or two. And I just think this is amazing value and another A for me, dog. I'm really excited about Chris Paul. So with our last pick, kind of blindsided me a little bit. I thought we needed some cornerback help, but I really wasn't thinking of Holmes for that. I watched a lot of him last year by proxy because his former teammate, Rodarius Williams, was a guy that I really liked. I was fixated on him. Kind of thought he reminded me of Carlos Rogers. But even in watching them, you could see that Christian was the better zone cornerback of the two. And he's a great athlete with those zone instincts and the explosiveness to drive on the ball. Um, he likes to stick his nose in on the run game, which is always promising. He had a good Hula Bowl this year. But honestly, I thought there were a ton of other players that ended up going undrafted that could have made more of an impact on this team. Like a bunch of guys that could have played the nickel, linebackers out there, other cornerbacks, wide receivers. Like there was still a ton of talent that ended up going undrafted. That all said, though, he's a fit from a gameplay and tool standpoint. And he was a seventh rounder, so who cares? But he's still solid enough. Nothing against the player, though. I have to go with a C here just because a lot of possible impact guys ended up going undrafted. And we didn't end up signing, a lot of them, as free agents. So I'm kind of tacking on a little bit of that disappointment onto his grade. I know that might not be fair, but I'm just kind of packaging him with the missed opportunity here. But overall, I'm still going to give him a C, and I think that it's still, even with that C, I think this might be the most optimistic and positive Commanders draft grade out. I really think that this was a solid A draft. Like last year, we went all upside, swung for the fences. This year, we complemented that perfectly with solid base hits. And honestly, I think they'll add up to some more important, like RBIs. Like they're, sorry for the baseball references. I don't even like baseball, but I thought it made sense. These are a bunch of sure thing pieces that are going to add up to be huge improvements to the team. I think Jahan Wick will shock a lot of us becoming an Antonio Brown across from Terry. Mathis is going to unlock our linebacker level to stay clean and look way better. Plus, he's going to help the rest of that D line free up and get some more pressure. Robinson is going to complete our run game and hopefully be the power shot in our 1-2 punch at running back that can combine with Gibby to manufacture that Derrick Henry effect I keep talking about. That late game takeover with the two running backs. And Percy gives us that versatility and rotation at the safety position like I was hoping for with some earlier prospects in this draft. We still ended up getting something like that with a fourth rounder, which will be a monster bump to our coverage, I think. Sam Howell is our future franchise quarterback. I really think, he can be that. Now, he has the time to time to develop with no pressure. Perfect situation for him to become an elite franchise quarterback. Cole Turner is that big slot, jumbo wide receiver. We're missing a tight end. I think Bates, has the brighter future as the rounded tight end. But Turner's going to be a great weapon. Almost like a Jimmy Graham, just a jumbo receiver. Chris Paul has a ton of potential to become a future starter at offensive guard. And we got some cornerback depth. So, great group of talent to begin this new era of Washington football, an era where this proud franchise can once again command respect. And what better way to kick off this new era than subscribing here to the Washington Command Center so you can find your way back to some of the most opinionated and ice cold calculated takes on all things Washington Commanders. While you're at it, ring that bell, hit that like button. And if you watch this long, I love y'all. Peace.